guys, STTM here, and in today's video, we got a talk about we have our predictions for the 2024 first ever college football playoff bracket, 12 teams. So yeah, guys, but before we get into it, make sure you like, subscribe, put on notifications, and comment on the video, as it lets me know what you think, gets me more recommended. And if you put on notifications, you will literally be updated about the latest videos that I upload on this channel. And you don't want to miss them. And I also appreciate it. I also appreciate if you do all this. So, enough with the Japanese. Let's get straight into the video. Goodbye! Okay, now for this game, first game we're going to actually predict here is going to be the 12 seed in Clemson versus the 5 seed in Texas. Texas is in because, well, they just had a great season, and they've been really high in the rankings pretty much all year round. And Clemson, they're here because they won the ACC. They're in anyways, but since all the other conference champions and Arizona was higher ranked, Arizona State are higher ranked, Clemson gets the 12 seed. So, but I will have Clemson win. That's because I am more impressed at their roster, and I think that they're going to do well. Cade Klubnik is going to play very good ball. Phil Maffa, Jay Haynes can maybe get something good. Antonio Williams has been good for Clemson. So is Bryant Wesco Jr., TJ Moore, Jake Beringstool, Troy Stellano. It's overall a great offense, and I think this offense is going to be able to compete. I do like this team, weirdly enough, a little more than Clemson, and also seeing the defensive stats: Barrett Carter, Wade Woodaz, Sammy Brown, RJ Mickens, Khalil Barnes, TJ Parker. I don't know. I like this roster overall just more. So for that, Clemson is going to be headed versus Arizona State. Tennessee versus Ohio State. I think Ohio State is a more loaded team. I like their roster a lot more. Now I'm going to load up the Ohio State roster, or their stats rather, to just show off more of their talents. Will Howard is a great quarterback. Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson have been playing really well together. On the receiving side, Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, Brandon Inniss, G. Scott Jr., even Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins have been very talented as receiving options. Their defense has been insanely good. Like, it's insane how good their defense is. Give me Ohio State. SMU versus Penn State. I think this one is going to be fairly easy to predict, and it's going to be Penn State. Now, Penn State, they have a very scary team. They do not necessarily do well in the big games, but SMU really hasn't played any good teams, unlike Penn State, who actually has experience versus good teams this season and overall in the last couple seasons. So give me Penn State to advance to the Fiesta Bowl. Now for Indiana, Notre Dame, I'm definitely taking Notre Dame. Excuse me. If you guys said bless you, thank you so much. Now, back to the prediction. For this, I'm going to be taking Notre Dame. Indiana, all I can really think for them who's going to play well is Curtis Rourke. And they also really don't have that much experience in playoff games. And in their biggest game versus Ohio State, they got pretty whooped. So yeah. Now Riley Leonard hasn't been amazing, but I think the defense is going to be coming in really handy with guys like Jack Kaiser, Drake Bowen, Xavier Watts, Benjamin Morrison, Jaden Ausberry, Jalen Sneed, Adon Schuler, Leonard Moore, Riley Mills, Donovan Hinnish. Yeah, I think it's going to be a more impressive defensive showing for this Notre Dame team. So I think Notre Dame is going to beat Indiana. Now, I have Clemson beating Arizona State because I really don't see much appeal in Arizona State, because I think they're kind of a weak. They've been really good versus like Big 12 opponents, but I feel like despite them literally having a bye, out of all the teams here, they're probably the worst one. So I think Clemson is going to be in our semifinal. Oregon versus Ohio State. This is going to be a very good rematch, but I'm going to go with Oregon. I feel like for me it's a safe pick, and also their offense has been performing insanely well. Defense, probably. I feel like the defense is great, but I think it's not going to be able to keep up with Ohio State's offense. But I think Oregon's offense is going to pull through and win this game. It's going to be a very close one, though. This game between Boise State and Penn State, I think really just like the running game is going to be a little weak for Boise State, despite guys like Sire Gaines and Ashton Jeanty. But I think Penn State advances to semis, and then between Georgia and Notre Dame, I'm going to go with Georgia. So we're now going to be in our semifinal. We'll have Clemson versus Oregon and Penn State versus Georgia. I think Georgia is going to destroy Penn State and get a spot in the final. I mean, Penn State, they did hang in versus Oregon, but versus a team like Ohio State, they definitely got a little bit humbled versus Ohio State. And I feel like they're going to get that same thing versus this Georgia team. They've been really impressive. So give me Georgia. And now Oregon versus Clemson. Now, this one might be a tiny bit tricky to predict, but I'm still going to head off and take Oregon to be in my championship versus the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, who's going to be my winner? I've said it all season long. The Oregon Ducks are going to win the national championship. That team has just been so good and so talented. I don't necessarily know what it is. They've had so many great players. They've had like Dylan Gabriel, Jordan James, Evan Stewart, Tez Johnson, even Trayshawn Holden and Terrence Ferguson have been great. They have like Josh Connerly Jr. and Johnny Cornelius to protect them. Their defense has had amazing players. So give me the Oregon Ducks to win the national title game. So yeah, guys, that is STTM's playoff prediction. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, as STTM is now out. See y'all next time. Road to 500 subs!